Hi, my name's Adam Kosh from the Android Developer Relations team at Google. Today I wanted to talk to you about the new SMS APIs in Android 4.4 KitKat. So let's jump right in. Starting with Android 4.4 KitKat, there's the new concept of a default SMS application. Only the default SMS application can write directly to the system content provider. Other apps that try and write will fail silently. Of course, any app can still read from the system content provider as long as they have the correct permission. So you might be thinking, why do we need this new concept of a default SMS app? In previous versions of Android, you could already assign some of the SMS intents to any application. But the difference is that app had no unique privileges over any other app on the system. With the new default SMS app selection, that app will now have additional privileges and be guaranteed to get every single message. Another app cannot abort the delivery of the SMS or interrupt that flow. This helps to increase reliability. Additionally, no other app can delete or alter messages out from underneath the default app, which helps to decrease complexity within the default SMS app. This, combined with the fact that some of the previously private APIs in earlier versions of Android are now public, means that third-party SMS apps are supported first-class citizens of the Android system. So let's talk about implementation. To be eligible as the default SMS app, you must support some specific capabilities. In your Android manifest, you have to define two receivers to handle the receiving of SMSs and MMSs. You can see here that the actions are SMS deliver and WAP push deliver. You'll also note that these receivers require an additional permission on the actual receiver. Additionally, you have to define an activity, a UI that can handle creation of new SMSs. So here we've got a compose SMS activity. This might be triggered, say, from the System People app when you go and create a new SMS to a particular contact. And lastly, you also need a service that can also respond to creating and sending new SMSs. This is used by the system when a phone call comes in, and if you can't take it, you can quickly swipe up to send an SMS in the background to the person saying the reason why you can't actually take that call. Once you've defined all of these things, you'll be eligible to show up in a new system dialog that lets you choose the default SMS app. Additionally, you can also display a dialog that lets the user switch to your application as the default SMS app. And I'll show you how to do that shortly after this. One thing worth noting is that you still need to declare the same application-wide permissions that you always did to access SMS functionality. Things like write SMS, read SMS, send SMS, receive SMS, and receive MMS. So on the previous slides, you will have seen the two receivers we defined have two new KitKat delivery actions, SMS deliver action and WAP push deliver action. These only get delivered to the default SMS application. But in previous versions of Android, there was actually a private API that allowed you to also receive these SMSs. These actions were SMS received action and WAP push received action. And these still exist in KitKat and are actually now public. And applications can still listen to them as they did before. To distinguish the difference between these two, think of SMS received action as the system has received an SMS, whereas the SMS deliver action says the system is delivering your app an SMS because you are the default SMS app. So let's talk about some message receiver best practices. For apps that are not looking to become the default, they should just carry on as normal, using the message received actions. These are the ones that, as I mentioned, were private before KitKat, but are now public in KitKat. For apps that do want to become the default, they should probably be listening to both the message received and the new SMS delivered ones. So that means that when they're running on KitKat, they should really disable the one that's not being used, the message received actions. To do that, they should use the package manager.set component enabled setting method. That way they can disable these and they won't be using unnecessary resources and be triggered as new SMSs come in. Another approach to handling them is to use Boolean resource files to automatically enable and disable the receivers based on platform version. Really, the difference between these two is that set component enabled setting is a little more flexible. You can choose within code when you want to change it, whereas the Boolean resource is simpler but less flexible. So let's quickly look at how you would implement the Boolean method. Here you see we've created two Boolean XML files in our resource directories, one under the default res values directory with two values, has KitKat and pre-KitKat. We've additionally created another one in values-v19, which means any devices running on Android 4.4 KitKat or above will automatically load this resource file instead. And you can see we've set has KitKat to true and pre-KitKat to false. Then in our Android manifest file, in our receiver declarations, we assign this Boolean to the Android enabled attribute. This has the effect that on certain versions of Android, one will be enabled and the other disabled, and the reverse on the newer platforms. If you haven't seen this technique before, follow the link here on the right or the QR code to get more information. Another new API in KitKat is the ability to check which is the default SMS application using the telephony.sms.getDefaultSMSPackage method. Here you can see we're checking to see if we're running on KitKat or above, and then we're going to use that method to work out if we're currently the default SMS application. You can then call this in your onResume of your key activities, hide and show certain layouts as appropriate, and also enable and disable certain functionality as appropriate. For example, you may not want to allow sending SMSs if you're not currently the default SMS application. You can also open a system dialog to ask the user if they would like to switch the default SMS application to be yours. To do this, you use a new intent action change default, along with an extra package name to pass your package name to another activity which opens a system dialog that looks something like this that I showed you before. As soon as the user clicks yes, your application will now be the default. Your previous activity will get a call to onResume, and it can adjust its layouts and functionality as needed. Lastly, some additional notes. Messages can still be sent by any application using the existing SMS Manager APIs, assuming of course they hold the send SMS permission. However, for apps other than the selected default, the system writes all outgoing SMS messages to the system provider automatically. It won't, however, write outgoing MMS. This is particularly important for auxiliary SMS apps that may work alongside another app which is the default. One thing worth noting though, these auxiliary apps will no longer be able to write to the system content provider themselves, so they won't be able to do things like deleting messages or marking messages as read or unread. On the flip side, the default SMS application is responsible for writing its outgoing messages to the system provider. Lastly, SMS backup apps will need to temporarily become the default when restoring messages so that they can write correctly to the system content provider. For additional reference to the new SMS APIs in KitKat, see the Android developer blog where we have additional information posted up. You can follow this link or this QR code on the right side of the screen. We'll actually be posting some sample code up and linking to it in the description of this video and also on the blog post. Thanks for tuning into this DevByte.